Hello there, and welcome to the tour of the Tenderfoot class cargo ship, the 22nd ship in my Wimpomania line of ships, and the 5th of the Wimpomania segment ships. My name is Wimp, and I am the Chief Designer, Chief Builder, Chief Architect, and Chief Dumbass behind the Tenderfoot class project. Okay, something to get out of the way real quick. So, as you heard me say, this is one of the Wimpomania segment ships. Those who are familiar to my tour videos will know that I refer to parts of the video as segments, but I also refer to the larger, wider modules of this fully modular construction line of, sub-line of ships as segments as well. So this bit here is a bigger, wider bit that is connected with connectors. And I, like I said, refer to those as segments as well. So for the sake of clarity, I shall be calling those big bits of the ship segments, but the parts of the video I'm going to be calling sections, at least for the segment ships I'll be doing that. Right, the astute among you will have noticed I didn't say update, but despite the fact that this isn't an updated ship, there is still some original ships to show you, so I'm still going to roll the title for the first section, which is going to be the original ships, plural actually. Right, so here we have the brighter blue ones are the originals, at least in this game. I'm not going to do a full description of these like I would do, like I have done with the other segment ships that I've just updated. So this here is the original freshman, and this one, the fledgling, and this one, the greenhorn, were based on this. The freshman itself was based on a ship I built in another space game called Star Made, which, as I always say, if anyone has ever called Empyrion Minecraft in space, it's simply because they've never actually played Star Made. Now, in Star Made, the blocks are 1 meter cubed, like Minecraft. So when I came to build so actually here is the Probationer, which is a relatively new ship, and as you can probably tell, this is an SV, and this is much more similar to the original ship in Star Made, and that ship was built to carry around some spare turrets for a bigger ship that eventually became I should say, Innovator class in Empyrion. The Innovator was originally called Sterling in Star Made, and it had some detachable turrets, and the original of this, like I said, carried around the spare ones that weren't being used. So when I then came to Empyrion, I sort of built a version of it. I'm not entirely sure why the game keeps doing this, where some of the textures stay lit even though the ship isn't powered. There we go, fixed, not that it really mattered. So yeah, so the Star Made, it was 1 meter cubed, and since the large grid blocks in Empyrion are 2 meters cubed, this is roughly 8 times bigger. However, this, because it's built with blocks that are 1/2 meter cubed, it is of course roughly 1/8 the size of the original in Star Made. So I built this, and then I built a gunship variant in Empyrion and a mining ship version. These were built first in Empyrion, and of course these were built before the game was fully released, before 1.0, so of course they had no weights and volumes, no CPU. So I've been going through all of my pre-1.0 builds and updating them all, and at the back here you can see the updated ones. So this here is the updated fledgling Sorry, I got mixed up between fledgling and freshman there, and I was going to say fleshman, apparently. Sounds like some sort of Halloween horror movie antagonist, doesn't it? Anyway, so that's the original fledgling, yes. There's the that's the updated one, sorry. There's the updated freshman, which is the update of this one. As you can see, they've gotten a whole lot bigger-ish. And there's the updated Greenhorn gunship. Now, one of the things that has happened with the update or the updated ones, because I needed to fit so much more equipment into them than these original ships, because, like I said, there was no such thing as weights and volumes. So if we have a look over at the fledgling class, the original, sorry, the only thing we needed to store the stuff that the drills were digging up was these harvest boxes. There's a small one there and a large one there, and the only thing we needed for ammo was these. So yeah, the fact that we now need so much bigger containers meant the ships had to get bigger. So the segments, that's the let's get you a better view, that's this wider bit here of the originals. The updated ones are now 4 blocks in total longer. So sorry, I was thinking 2 blocks from the middle forwards and 2 blocks from the middle backwards, so 4 in total. And also 2 blocks wider. Again, 1 block wider from the middle on each side. On top of that, these connectors in between the segments, well, as you can see on the original, they're only 2 blocks long, these connectors, whereas on the updated ones, they are 3 blocks long. And of course, because the ship is 2 blocks wider, the connectors are also 2 blocks wider. So they're much bigger-ish than the originals. Rightio then, I think that's all I really need to show you and talk about. Oh, this one over here is not an update, it's a new vehicle, but it's based on the same modular construction. Oh, I should have said, and I might as well say it now, the modular kit I used to build these updated segment ships is in fact up at the construction area. And I do plan to go up there and show you the kit at the end of the video in the other info section if anyone is interested. Righto, so that'll be the end of that section. So the next section is going to be its role and its task equipment. Okay, so as I said in the intro, the Tenderfoot class is a cargo ship, so it is tasked with long duration cargo haulage. So to facilitate that task, it has 2 cargo segments, each of which has 4 320k SU cargo containers, and it has a relatively large living space for the crew. And as I always say, you could probably count the thrusters as its task equipment, because without them it couldn't haul anything anywhere. Aye. Right, so that's nice and quick. That'll be the end of that section. So the next section is going to be its propulsion, handling and lift capacity. Okie dokie, turn the thrusters on. As usual, I'm going to leave it on the ground though, so we don't have to put up with the noise of the thrusters keeping it in hover. But that does mean when we have a look at the underside, we need to go underground. Never mind. So, starting with its forward thrust, as you can see, it has 2 large thrusters on by default. For braking and reverse, it has 12 small jet thrusters on by default, 6 in the front of each thruster nacelle, as you can see. For lateral thrust, it has 8 small jet thrusters, all of which are in the sides of the nacelles. Plus, it has 3 mediums and 3 smalls at the front of the ship. For descent, it has 14 medium thrusters in total. There are 3 on each side at the front. And then there's 4 on the top of each nacelle at the back. And then for ascent, also known as lift, she has 24 small jet thrusters on by default. As you can see, there's 10 on the bottom of each nacelle on by default. Those 4 at the back, and then the 6 at the front here. Same on each nacelle. There's also 4 in the middle of the forward cargo segment. There's also 8 medium thrusters. As you can see, there's 1 on the bottom of each of these arms at the front, and there is also 6 at the... Actually, that's nearer the front than the other arms, but it's not at the front, but anyway, whatever. And then 6 at the front in these thruster rings, which I'll explain properly later on. Some of you will have noticed that some of the thrusters are off. So, the additional lift thrusters are set to max lift. And max lift will turn on another 8 small jet thrusters. So it'll turn on the 2 at the back that were off on each nacelle, the 2 at the back of each nacelle. It'll also turn these 4 on that are in the middle of the aft cargo segment that has this humpback top, same as this. And you may have noticed as I turn the max lift on, there is also an ahead full function. That turns on the other large thrusters for forward, and it also turns on the couple of other small jet thrusters that are in the front of the nacelles. Okay, so its mobility then, starting with its manoeuvrability. So it'll accelerate forwards at 104 meters per second squared. It'll reverse at 58 meters per second squared. It'll go sideways at 56, descend at 58, and it'll ascend at 149 meters per second squared. That is, of course, with max lift and a head full off. If we turn max lift on, the 149 lift changes to 187. And if we turn a head full on, then we will see the 103 goes up to, weirdly, 209 instead of 206, like you would expect. I don't know why. And the 58 braking and reverse goes up to 77. As for its agility, with max lift and a head full off, it'll yaw at 36 degrees per second, pitch at 40, and roll at 103 degrees per second. Wait a minute, I just noticed that when I did the head full on, I was looking at the roll number rather than that number, so it does make a bit more sense. 104 up to 208 or whatever it is, 209. Anyway, right, so with max lift on then, the pitch and roll will change. So from 40 to 46 and 103 to 113. And with a head full on, the yaw will change to 43 from 36. Sorry, I couldn't remember. As for its lift capacity, so with max lift off, she can operate in up to 15 G. Now there is of course dry weight with nothing in it, but I've given you lots of thrust, and of course as far as I know the highest G you can get in the vanilla game is 4 as far as I know, but I've given you lots of lift in case you're carrying heavy stuff in the cargo containers, and with max lift on it will lift about 19.1 kilotons in 4G, and the ship itself weighs 4.0 what? 4.01 apparently. Hang on. See, it did last night up at the construction area. It did weigh 4.04. What have I changed? I haven't changed anything. Yes, I have. Yes, I have changed something. So there was actually other descent thrusters there, and I took them off. That saved some weight. Okay. Fix. Okay, fixed. I shall resave in a minute. So there we go. Right, that'll be the end of that section then. Oh, I'm not going to bother giving it a test fly again just to save a bit of time. No one seems to mind when I don't, because I think most people can guess how it'll fly just by this stuff here. Right, that'll be the end of that section then, as I said. So the next section is going to be its power, fuel and air. So as usual with my tours, I'm going to tell you about this stuff now and then show you where it all is later on when we get to the interior layout bit. So its power is provided by 4 large tier 1 generators. Its fuel, it has 20 medium, also known as tier 2 fuel tanks and a pentaxid tank. It also has 18 small O2 tanks, 11 ventilators, 4 O2 stations, and it is fully compartmentalized. It has 8 compartments. Okay, that'll be the end of that section. The next section is going to be its weapons, defences and construction. Starting with its weapons then, and it is very lightly armed. So she has 6 sentry turrets that are set to what I consider to be my point defense targeting configuration. So they will target ground troops and drones and the weaponry of small vessels. Of course, that's just the way they come from the factory. That doesn't mean that's the way they have to stay. Defences, while she doesn't have a shield, there is a small amount of armour in the back around the core. So the core is underneath this slope, just there. And if we get our multi-tool out, you will see that 5 of the 6 sides are surrounded in hardened steel, except the 6th side is a wireless connector. That's where the core is. And then the rest of that back section is steel. Its construction, so like normal with these segment ships, because of the way they're built with fully finished modules, though that fully finished includes being fully painted, basically. And that means if I was to show you an unpainted one, like I normally do in my tours, that would mean I'd have to go around for 15 or 20 minutes using the paint tool on every single texture, or every single variant of texture and colour, and I'm just not willing to do that. So it's back to the old-fashioned method of showing you with the multi-tool. So the ship does have a structural frame, as is usual with my builds. The structural frame on this is hardened steel. So the hardened steel structural frame runs around the whole ship at this level, and also down here at this level is hardened steel, and also connecting the two at the front and back of each segment, that's each bit where it's wider, and also running from side to side of the same. Likewise, the top bit here, I missed a bit there. Yeah, whatever. So the outer edge of all this stuff up here that is stuck on top is also hardened steel, except for where I miss a block. So that line there is hardened steel, as well as that line there. Basically all the way around as well. Alright. Except I end it here rather than going all of this bit, because I didn't feel it was necessary. Other than the hardened steel frame then, the rest is steel, apart from a very small amount of carbon composite. These pretend water tanks that are visible on the outside are carbon. The illuminated orientation panels, and in fact this bit that holds the headlights on, is carbon composite. The windows are all normal windows, Windows L. I don't really think there's anything else. Oh, I should say as well that so that line of blocks go into the arms, and also, as you can see, those and the ones that's in here that we can't see, but those blocks there are as well. Did I do those as? No. Okay. I didn't think I did, but I thought I'd check. So there we go. That's basically what it's made of. Now, apart from the video where I forgot, I will also cover the modules that I've used to build this particular ship, because it's also part of the construction, I think. So, at the back we have the engineering segment, which obviously contains the power generators, most of the fuel, the warp drive and the pentaxid tank. The CPU extenders are in there as well as a couple of the repair jobs, and we'll see when we get to the interior layout. So, the engineering segment also has a built-in flat-top pad with a repair device that I call a device and not a bay, because as far as I'm concerned, a bay is a big room with a big door on it, whereas that's just a block, so it's a repair device. The engineering segment also comes with, as you can see, a ramp and a slope up to that flat-top pad. Right, the connector in front of the engineering segment is a foyer lock connector, and we will go in through there in a bit, but it has ground access in the middle via a boarding ramp. In front of that is one of the cargo segments with 4 of the 320 KSU containers. Attached to those two segments, as you can see, is what I call my double long, double wide thruster nacelles. Of course, it's double long because a single nacelle is only 1 segment long, whereas this is 2 segments and the connector in between them in length. And it's also double wide because instead of being only 4 blocks wide, it's 6. Now I know that's not actually double, but it's double the thrusters in width. So a single wide would come to there, so just 4, and then that would be blocks, you see. Right, moving forward, we have a medical connector in the middle there, then another cargo segment, then we have another foyer lock connector. This one, as you can see, is a normal one, foyer lock A, as I call it, with the ingress-egress doors on the sides. Obviously this one at the back, if I kept them there, well, you can see the problem. The ramp would go into that nacelle. Doesn't really work. Right, so 4... Oh, hang on. No, that's fine. So 4 of the front foyer lock is a habitation segment there for living. On top is what I call a blank lid, a blank top, a nothing thing. Then we have the equipment ring there. We have 3 thruster rings there. And then in front of that is a large 4-person cockpit. Righto then, so that'll be the end of that section. So the next section is going to be its resource gathering, production and storage. Right, resource gathering, it has none. Production, the only production it has on board is a single food processor for cooking. And then storage, it has 4 8K SU ammo containers, so that's just the controller with no extensions. As I've already said, it also has 8 320K SU cargo containers, 4 in each of the cargo segments. I should point out that the number of extensions that each of those container controllers have is actually slightly more than the container needs to be 320. I basically just filled up the space, and it's something like 4 more than it's needed. So if you take a bit of damage and you lose a couple, you won't lose stuff in the containers, which is good, I think. It also has 2 160k SU cargo containers in the habitation segment. It has 12 large and 3 small cargo boxes on board. It has 2 8k SU water tanks, air quotes, and they are of course just a cargo container that I pretend is a water tank. It also has 4 armor lockers, 1 large fridge, and 4 miscellaneous storages. So think the wardrobe, cabinet, closet things in the bedrooms. Righto, that'll be the end of that section. So the next section is going to be its interior layout and any remaining devices. As usual then, we shall start with the any remaining devices that happen to be on the outside of the ship, since that's where we already are. And we're going to start with landing gear. She has some. And then headlights, she has some of those too. They are the forward pointing headlights, even though they are slopes, they aren't the diagonal ones. Speaking of lights, my ship is of course fully flight regulation lighting compliant, like all of my builds are, pretty much. So we'll start with the running lights. Those are the ones that are already on, so we might as well start with those. And that's this slowly pulsing one that you can see there. There is 1 on all 8 corners, roughly. And that is of course all 4 corners on top and all 4 corners on the bottom. Thank you. And they let any observer know that the ship is powered. I'm not going to bother telling the story about me up at the construction area. Look, you'll have to watch one of the previous segment ships tours for that. But basically even I find those useful. Right. The next lights we're going to talk about are the 2 flavours of orientation lights. So the first ones we're going to talk about, the first flavour, is these illuminated orientation panels that you can see dotted around the entire ship. These are the ship's formation lights that other ships use to fly in formation with the ship. Say ship again, Wimp. Ship it down to the ship and we'll ship it out of here. So they are, as you can see, red on the port side, white on the stern, and green on the starboard side. They are also yellow on the ventral side. Oh, let's get a better view. There we go, that's better. The second flavour is the navigation lights. These are the red and green and white lights you will often see on planes. And they are again red on the port side, white on the stern, and green on the starboard side. And don't worry, we will see those turned on later on. Then we move on to the anti-collision lights, and there are 2 flavours of those. The first is the anti-collision beacons. Those are the flashing red lights you will often see on planes. And they will come on automatically if you use this switch for your thrusters, the main propulsion switch. They flash red on top, so there's one there, one on the top of most of the segments, except for the ones that have a flat top pad, and then one on the top of most of the arms, all of the arms actually on this ship. And there are also yellow ones on the bottom that are also anti-collision, that are roughly in the same spots. The second flavour of anti-collision light are the flight strobes, and these are the bright white flashing lights you will often see on the wingtips of planes. Again, we will see those turned on later on. But they let any... the anti-collision beacons let any observer know that the thrusters are powered and therefore the ship could move at any moment. And the flight strobes are supposed to help with long distance visual acquisition. As I always say, that doesn't necessarily translate very well into the game, because the game will quite often render a ship, especially one as large as this, before it renders the lights. But I do it for realism. And then we move on to the name displays and registry displays that you can see dotted around. So here we have a main registry display, and as you can probably guess, the WM stands for Wimpomania, the line to which this ship belongs. And the 22 is, this is the 22nd ship within that line. And then these number symbols you are supposed to replace with the number of which yours is. If you can be bothered to do so, how you would find that out is look on the workshop, the page for this ship, and you would see how many people have subscribed to it, and then add 1, because I have 1 and I'm not subscribed to it because it's my ship. And then assuming, of course, you were the last person to subscribe, that number would be the number you would put there. As usual, the projectors that project these are always in a relatively obvious place. If you can't be bothered to do that, of course, there's nothing wrong with you leaving it as the number symbols, or just putting another number there that means something to you. Like I always say, house number, credit card PIN, date of birth, whatever. Then we have its full registry and class display dotted around. It's in various places. And so, like I said, this is the full registry that includes the main registry, but it also includes some additional info. So the WMF at the start simply stands for Wimpo Manufacturing, the name of the manufacturer that manufactures the ship. Then we have its ship type, its classification. So this stands for Utility Transport Cargo Ship. And then we have the class and a colloquial version of the type down here. This is the Tenderfoot class. It's a cargo ship. As you can probably tell, that cargo ship is obviously there as well. But this is the official term that gets recorded with whatever government body governs the ships that we fly in universe. So think NASA or Civil Aviation Authority, for example, and blah blah. So they would record that as the official term, but this is what we would all us lay people would know it as. And then we have a name display. You can, of course, name your ship whatever you want. There is another display at the back here. And the ISV, in case you care and you don't know already, simply stands for Interstellar Vessel. It's a vessel that travels interstellarly, so between stars. And you can, of course, do the same in the control panel here. Rename your ship. Of course, you can name it anything you like. Now, technically, the first ship would be the Tenderfoot, so that would technically be mine. I'm neither going to know or care if you want to just name it the ISV Tenderfoot. If you want to call it the Boaty McBoatface or something similar, please feel free. Right, is that all of the remaining devices on the outside? I think it is. So let's talk about this real quick. The ramps and the spotlights on either side are obviously on a motion sensor. Oh, as well as that light there and mirror image there are on a motion sensor. That one in here just there. Might as well talk about this since we're here. The aft wireless connector is there in front of the core and behind the warp drive, so between them. Of course, this is for driving HVs up onto this flat top pad. As you can see, and I did point it out earlier, the repaired device is there. The lights up here are controlled by that motion sensor. Then we have a way in here. This is the aft foyer lock connector between there and there. If you was to carry on forward across the top of the ship using the ladders provided, you would of course get to the front foyer lock door, which is there-ish. Yeah. But we're not going to go in through either of those. We're going to go back down onto the ground and go in through the aft foyer lock boarding ramp. Now the light green lights you can see indicate ingress points. Now these ones are more useful than the ones over here because at the front foyer lock, because the door and the ramps make it slightly more obvious, but that's what these light green lights do. You aren't sat flush on the ground, are you? That's weird. Well, whatever. So the lights under here, these two and those two, are motion sensor controlled, but the boarding ramp itself is not, and that's because when it's closed it acts as part of the floor. In we go. As you can see, if this was so the lights down there are on that motion sensor there, and if that boarding ramp was on that too, it would be annoying traversing around in here. Right, so this is the aft foyer lock. It's very similar to the fore foyer lock. The only difference is that in the fore one, and we'll see it in a minute, there is a teleporter here that obviously takes the place of that motion sensor, and then the motion sensor up there to control the teleporter. But as you can see, we have some equipment in here. I'm not going to bother pointing it all out. The one thing I am going to point out though is above that air vent is a small gravity generator. In through this orange door, as you can see by the label, is engineering. Warp drive fuel, pentaxid tank, there's all your fuel, and on the other side, field repair station, the console for the repair device on the roof, on the flat top pad. There's 2 of the 4 large tier 1 generators, there's the other 2. In here is thruster nacelle access, no vents in here, so don't forget to wear your helmet if you're not in a breathable atmosphere. You may have noticed through the windows as well, there's also access through these orange shutters here. No! No! Boo! I swear I checked in here. Actually, I think I'm going to go with that texture because it matches there. Okay, all fixed. And as you can see, there is plenty of room in the nacelles if you want to expand anything. Do be warned, of course, and I'm sure I don't need to tell anyone, but the thrusters will draw enemy fire, so anything in here is at risk of being lost, so bear that in mind, especially since the ship doesn't have any shield. Right, so, yes, where did we get to? We were in engineering, right. I think we've seen everything in here. Oh, this door, by the way, into engineering is manual. Basically, if I don't say it's manual, I either have forgotten, like I just did with that, or it's automatic. This one is automatic. This goes into the aft cargo segment. As you can see, cargo containers in here, as well as some large cargo boxes. Each one of these has 6. You can probably just about see it up there peeking through the gap, but there is a Wi-Fi in here, and there were actually other cargo boxes, large ones there and there, but I was worried about how much fuel the ship had, so I replaced that one and that one obviously with fuel. The same goes for the 4 cargo container segment cargo. Then we move into the medical connector. This is the medical connector. Oh, my headlight was on from where I was retexturing and stuff. As you can see, full medical devices in here, other than the heal and respawn that is in the foyer locks, because I thought that was more useful being in a foyer lock. But whatever. There is also a pretend patient bed with a patient readout and ablutions for the patient. Say patient again, Wimp. There is also doors up at the windows. These I consider window shutters, even though that's a door. Aye. And another one there. So you can block off any sunlight coming in through the windows. Patient. Another cargo segment. Then we go into the foyer, the 4 foyer lot. Oh my god. Oh, I forgot to point out in the aft one, but not that it really matters. The elevator obviously goes up to the roof. Here is the teleporter I talked about earlier. The only difference in here, other than the teleporter, is the fact that the ingress and egress is to the sides rather than out the bottom. Oh, and the intercom panel in the other one is actually there rather than there, but, you know, whatever. So these connectors all have the same stuff, basically, in the ceiling. O2, ammo, and a gravity generator above the ventilator. The only difference with the medical connector, even, is that I replaced the ammo with cargo boxes for meds. Otherwise, it's exactly the same. Now we move into habitation. Those who have seen the tours for the previous segment ships, this will look familiar, but it's not exactly the same as the survival segments that we've seen on the ships up to now. So this has basically quarters for 4 crew. So we have a double bunk, a closet, a shower, toilet. There's the pretend water tank. Light switches on the ceiling. I've used the symbols to show you what lights are connected to them. This one is obviously the same. Again, window shutters up at the window. Now the top window shutter door runs on the signal provided by the bottom one. So you operate the bottom one and it'll operate the top one. Now obviously I know that doors adjacent to each other will always power each other as well. But the game considers this to be adjacent to this because they're obviously, this is in this block here and this door is in this block here. They are adjacent, so that's why I've done that. That's manual, by the way. This one isn't. Then we have a bit of a living area, so I consider that to be my long-range comms panel so that you can phone home. Who are you going to call? I make that joke again, why not? A bit of a lounge with a big sofa and a telly. Not sure what the telly's connected to out in space, but whatever. Obviously a dining area for the crew and a kitchenette that includes a large fridge and a food processor. Right, moving forward. Oh, sorry, hang on. The two 160 KSU cargo containers are in here. They make up part of the ceiling in here. Aye. Right, then we have a large cockpit, but before we go through to the cockpit, so this is the equipment ring I pointed out earlier. Now, normally the equipment ring has an O2 tank in that block there that I've obviously replaced with a medium fuel tank on both sides. It also has a forward wireless connector, or the forward wireless connector I should say, and also the detector roar, as well as the front gravity generator. And then the next 3 blocks are the 3 thruster rings. As you can see, they're called thruster rings because they're sort of ring shaped and they have thrusters in them. And then that leads us into the cockpit. Oh, and in case you care, that light up there is set to the power save switch and isn't on a motion sensor. So, the cockpit is mostly blank, and I've done that so that you have some space to put whatever you need in it. So, some people might need another, or might want another armor locker in here, or an O2 station, or maybe they want a medic station for respawning in here. I thought it was best to leave it blank blank so that you can put whatever you want in any given moment rather than forcing you to have whatever I've chosen in here. As you can see, there are 4 seats. We have 2 passenger seats for 2 of the crew, and there is a pilot and a co-pilot seat. There are obviously cockpit seats. We have another intercom panel, and of course the cockpit has my usual HUDs, heads-up displays. So we have the lift performance and what the power save does on the middle ones, and then the outer ones, and I've done that because they are visible from both seats, that middle one. And then of course we have the device groups and signals shortcuts display, and I'm going to use that now to transition onto the next section, which will be its shortcuts and its signals. Can't really see those very well, so let's do it from here. Right. As usual, please don't auto group, because some of these device group shortcuts rely on my custom device groups to operate. Of course, if you're willing to deal with whatever mess it makes when you auto group and then fix these as best you can, by all means do it. But please don't if you can't be bothered to do that, because it will break certain stuff. Okay. The device group column then starts as usual with main propulsion. So as I showed you earlier, that turns on most of the thrusters. Alright. And also the anti-collision beacons, red flashing on top. As you can see, there's some dotted all over the place, and yellows on the bottom. Flash again. Thank you. One there, there's one there. Another one there, another one there. Right, the next one down does the max lift. As I showed you earlier, that turns on... Where am I going? That turns on some of the... or the rest of the lift thrusters. Namely those and those 2, I think it is. Yeah. And the ahead full, as I said earlier, turns on the additional forward thrusters and a couple of extra braking ones. So the next 2 down are blank. So like usual, I tend to keep these all in the same order, no matter which ship. So sometimes you'll have things like emergency power and drills will be missing from ships that don't have those, which is why you end up with blank ones. Next one down that is in use is production and repair. Of course, you can't do an ampersand over here for some reason, even though you can over here. It makes no sense. So it doesn't really do a lot on this ship because it doesn't have much in the way of production and repair. So it'll turn on and off the repair device and the food processor in the kitchen. But I'm pretty sure the other 2 things... Oh, there you go. It'll do the field repair station. It's the armor and small arms that it doesn't do repair station. So there you go. That it'll turn those on and off. The idea is that if you've left one on, you would flick that switch a couple of times to turn them off. Next one down is artificial gravity. That will of course turn on and off all of the gravity generators. As I said earlier, each of the connectors in between the segments has a gravity generator. They all happen to be small on this ship. The exception is that there's also another one in what I called earlier the equipment ring here. This line of blocks here. So that if you are in a gravity well, either a natural one of a planet or an artificial one of a space station, you can save some power by turning those off. And the last one in the device group column is air vents. Now, just in case this is the first tour of mine you've seen, I will cover this, but in case it isn't, I will try to do it as fast as possible so you don't have to sit through a lengthy explanation. If you have a look at power left and turn oxygen off, that doesn't change, because although there's no longer air being blown into the interior of the ship, the ventilator blocks themselves are still powered. So I've given you an air vent switch so that you can turn off the ventilators, saving you fuel if you are in a breathable atmosphere. It actually did it this time. Moving on to the signals column. As usual, the first one is power save. Now it does tell you on the heads-up display what that does. But basically, turning power save on will turn off all of the all of the motion sensors and levers. Oh, with exception to the one that controls the ramp here, going up to the flat top pad. Because if you've left the ship on power save and you've driven off in a HV, I didn't want you to have to, when you drive back, get out of your HV, operate the ramps manually, get back into the HV, drive up onto the pad, get out of the HV, operate the ramps manually again, and then go back your day. So I've left that not on power save. It'll also do all of the LCD projectors, including the name and registry displays on the outside and the heads-up displays on the inside. It'll also do all these labels between the segments, and the connections. The little helmet warnings we saw when we went into the nacelles, it'll turn those off as well, by the way. And it'll turn off all of the Wi-Fi blocks. So that's the one in the equipment ring. Get a better view there. The one in the stern, in between the warp drive and the core block. And each of the ones in the top of the cargo segments. Next one down is weapons. It'll just do the 6 turrets because it has no other weapons on the ship. Then we come on to the nav lights and the flight strobes. So, as I showed you earlier, we have the red nav lights down the port side, we have the white nav lights on the stern, and we have green nav lights down the starboard side, and we have the flight strobes blinking away there, strobing away, flashing away. Aye, 3 down each side, so that's those. Next one is headlights. So, I do know that from the cockpit you can use your keyboard shortcut, which I think is defaulted to L for Lima. However, as far as I understand the way those work, that will also turn on the ones at the back here. So I've given you, normally the headlight switch is so that if you notice you've left them on when you come out of the ship, I didn't want you to have to go all the way back into the cockpit seat again. But of course now it's for making sure you don't turn all of the spotlight blocks on and off at the same time. And finally we have a close ramp and hatches switch. So the access hatches, which includes the two into each nacelle, the one from the outside and the one from engineering, and the boarding ramp in the aft foyer lock. If you accidentally leave one of those open and you're in the cockpit seat and notice, well, in fact you can do it from anywhere because I'm about to. If you notice one of them is open, flick the switch. Oh nice, we saw that one as well. And it'll close any that are left open, and it'll only close them. It won't open them again. Hooray! That's the end of that section then. So the next section is going to be its CPU and upgrading. Okay, in case you're skipping around in the video, I'm going to show you where these are again. So the core is in the stern under the slope up to the flat top pad. The CPU extenders are in the engineering segment through that orange door, obviously when you're coming from the other side. The astute among you will have noticed that these are tier 4 CPU extenders. I really tried to get it in tier 3, but I mean, so I even tried downgrading all of the small thruster jets, small jet thrusters, whatever. I tried downgrading all of them to mediums, and then I downgraded these larges to small thruster jets, and it was still over 1.8 million. I was like, "Ugh, I don't know what to do." So the big expense, really, other than the thruster jets, is the container extensions. So if there had been a way to get these down by like 300,000, it would have been possible. I did try. I didn't try very hard, but I did try. So as you saw, it's just over 1.85 million. Hang on, 1.85 million, we'll say, of the 10 million you are allowed. So there's plenty of room to play with. However, there isn't really an inbuilt upgrade path. So other than the big empty spaces in each nacelle, there isn't really any space left over for installing extra stuff. There's certainly nothing earmarked for anything. But that doesn't mean you can't personalize. So if you can squeeze a shield generator on, by all means. The one thing I would say is if you put a shield generator on, you might need a bit more power. So a shield generator, tier 1 shield generator uses just less than 2 of these. So yeah, it's possible you might need more. You could, if you don't care about how it looks, you could plop one on the top here. A 3x3 area there is. Yeah, I'm not sure I would dig into that and lower it down by 1 block. Yeah, actually you might be able to, because I think all of this is airtight, but you know, it's up to you. Or of course you could dig out some of the like if you don't want 8 320 KSU containers, dig out one of the containers. There's plenty of space if you was to rip some of that out, definitely. Of course, it only comes very lightly armed, but by all means feel free to strap some extra turrets onto the outer hull if you can find space. As I always say, you can put a sentry turret basically anywhere because it's only 1 block cubed in size. So you could even put one there, you know, or put it there actually, you know, that kind of thing. You could maybe plop a full-size turret there if you want to take up some of these railings. That would fit one. Of course, you could put them anywhere. I mean, take up some more railings and a light. You could have another one there. You could probably put another one or 2 up here. Yeah, so, and obviously there's plenty of space on each of the thruster nacelles. If you can find space to strap turrets onto it, by all means feel free. Righto, that'll be the end of that section. So the next and last section then is going to be any other info. Okay, choice of primary colours. I have actually given you a choice this time, and actually those of you familiar with my builds may have noticed that you may have noticed the pattern that if these little T-shape like patterns along the hull, if they are black instead of the secondary, instead of the primary variant blue, you'll know that there's another colour in the palette. So on cargo ships, I give you this sort of brownish grey colour that I quite like for freight transport. So there's that colour to choose from. Of course, you can change the palette any way you'd like, so even if you don't like that colour, by all means feel free to, you know, replace it. Can I get a purple? I think I need more blue than red, don't I? Yeah, okay. Cancel, whatever. Okay, back to the blue. So I'm going to talk about my damage texture like I normally do, just in case this is the first tour of mine you've seen. So, if you lose a block, I've painted the surface of all the blocks that get exposed with that, which, in case you care, is that texture in that colour. And I do that because if you leave them as blank default, the default textures, those textures and colours are used elsewhere in the build, so I don't feel that that looks too much like damage. But the how I had it before, that looks to me like smouldering metal, which is why I do that. It looks more like damage, in my opinion. The naming convention of the Wimpomania line of ships. I consider myself to be a noob at building, that is N-O-O-B, sometimes spelt with zeros if you're speaking Leet. As a result, I have called all of the ships in the Wimpomania line words that mean someone who is new at something, so synonyms of newbie, N-E-W-B-I-E, or words that mean someone who is the first at something, which is why you end up with things like pioneer and discoverer and frontiersman and starter and beginner and freshman, for example, and initiate and student and cadet and blah 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 and on and on and on. So there we go, that explains the name. Oh, Tenderfoot, by the way, is someone who is new at something, usually someone who is new at something to do with work but isn't used to hard labour or something. I can't remember now. You can Google it if you care too much. That's how it's spelled. Tenderfoot. You see, okay. Oh, blinkies. For those who don't like me flashing at you with my lights, of course. So the nav lights and flight strobes are easy. I mean, nav lights don't flash, but the flight strobes most certainly do. You just don't turn them on if you don't like them. If you are using this thruster switch, then you don't need to worry about the anti-collision beacons, but if you are using this main propulsion switch and you don't like the anti-collision beacons, this is how you deal with them. You go to the devices, you scroll all the way down to look for the reg lights prefix. That stands for regulation lights, obviously. The anti-collision lights is what you're looking for. If they are active, because that main propulsion switch is on, deactivate them here. And then you remove the shortcut, and then that's it. They will never come on again. And finally, the running light, which is why I've come here to stare at one. This slow pulsing white light that I said earlier was on all 8 corners of the ship is similar to that, except you don't need to worry about a shortcut. You just deactivate the entire device group. And then that's it. They'll never come on again, ever again, either again. Ship. Right, as promised, we are going to go up to the construction area and look at the modular kit if you are interested. But first, there is this last thing to do, as usual. Oh, I always do that. I always alt an F2 instead of just pressing F2. I'm going to publish the ship. Of course, I'm going to keep it private so I can do the description and the, the screenshots. There we go. Right, I will see you up there then. Whee! Okay, and here we are at my ship kit for building these segment ships. It's quite a mess, but never mind. Of course, anything like this probably will be. My food, by the way, in the bottom left, I've no idea why my hunger keeps going down even though I'm in creative. I have at some point switched to survival to test some ship, whether it would target drones or something, I can't remember now, but ever since then I haven't been able to fix that. Right, the ship kit. I need to get this out. The stern. So this is how I start each of these segment ships, with the engineering segment that has the flat top pad and the slope and ramp built in already. That is, of course, here as well as part of the kit. And then I add whatever I want the ship to have onto the front of that as I build the ship. We will start with the nacelles. As I mentioned earlier, is my headlight on? Yes, it is. So this here is a single length nacelle, as I call it. It is exactly one segment in length. And then we have a double long nacelle, which of course is 2 segments and a connector in between. Oh, this is out of power. That's why everything looks dark. There we go. That's better. And then we have, which is what's on the Tenderfoot, the double long, double wide thruster nacelle. Here's what I was talking about. This is why this is double wide, even though this is 4 blocks and that's 6 blocks. It's the thrusters that I'm talking about is double. So there we go. Those are the thrust nacelles. Let's talk about the connectors next, since they're in front. So here we have, this is technically foyer lock A connector. This obviously is on all of them, actually, including the Tenderfoot. Is the way in and out of the ship, including up onto the top. Then we have the medical connector, which again is on the Tenderfoot, so that anyone, if you're transporting goods a long way and someone gets ill, there's somewhere for them to recover, is the idea of that. Then there's the production connector, where there is a couple of constructors of varying sizes, plus that and some storage. Then we have a habitation connector that has a place to sleep, a place to cook and eat, and a place to wash and pee. And then finally is a cargo connector, which just has a couple of small-ish cargo containers. Again, as usual, each of these connectors has a gravity generator, O2, and ammo. Again, apart from the medical that replaces the ammo with cargo boxes. So that's those. Oh, hang on. There's this one up at the front as well. So this is foyer lock B. Again, this one is on the Tenderfoot. It's the one with the... oh, yeah. It's the one with the boarding ramp in the bottom. I noticed there was a texture missing, so I'm going to need to resave this. Moving on to the segments, here is the habitation segment that is on the Tenderfoot. Oh, there's a look at the cargo containers in the ceiling of that, by the way. Yeah, this is the living segment that is on that. Let's go to, is it this one next? It is the survival segment that is on the other ones. So it's similar, has the same bedroom but only for 2 people. A similar but smaller living and dining and kitchen area. But then it also has a built-in production area and storage. There is this one over here that's the gunship segment that has the cannon turrets down the one side, the shield generator and a large ammo container, as well as a couple of extra generators to help power the shield. This one over here is the cargo segment. Again, the Tenderfoot has this, 2 of these, that is 320 KSU cargo containers. We have a garage bay segment that, as you can see, has large doors into the inside for carrying around some HVs. And we have a farming segment with grow plots, obviously, as well as some seed and food storage. Oh, and then up here is some blank empty ones, connector and segment. On top of those goes these tops lids things. So we have a flat top pad. We have a flat top pad with slide loading ramps. We have a blank lid top thing that goes on top of a segment when I don't want anything to be up there. And then there is the top of the cargo segment that has the extra container extensions that take these containers up to 320. Those of you who are good at maths will look at that and know how many of those extensions are actually surplus to take it up to 320. As I said earlier, the 320 containers have more extensions than is needed. We have the arms that go down the side. We have the ones that are usually close to the nacelles that don't have a lift thruster. And we have the ones that aren't, that do. And finally we have the cockpits. So this here is the small cockpit. Now if you don't count the back wall or the front window blocks, this cockpit is only 2 blocks long and is for only one person. And then we have a medium cockpit which is for 2 people. Now as each of these increases in the number of people, they increase in length as well, with one exception. So not counting the back wall and the front windows, this is 3 blocks long. Then we have the large cockpit, which is on the Tenderfoot. This is 4 people, so again not counting the back wall and the front glass, this is 4 blocks in length. And then we have the gunship cockpit. Now this doesn't go up in personnel, this is still only 4 people, 2 gunners and a pilot and a co-pilot, but it is 1 block longer still, it's 5 long. Again, counting that and that, not counting it I should say. I like the cockpits because they are in different styles. So the small one is in the same sort of style as my starter class, my probationer class and my frontiersman class. And then the medium one is in a similar style to my initiate class, my rookie tank and my pathfinder class. In fact, it's almost exactly the same as the pathfinder class cockpit, including the retractable roof here. The large cockpit is in a similar style as my beginner class, my beginner class and my recruit class, sort of ish. And then the gunship cockpit here is in a similar style to my forerunner class, my apprentice class and my plebe class, which is that mining ship there actually. Has armour down one side. Being a gunship, it tends to circle around. Yeah, anyway, blah, whatever. You can look at the video for that. So, I'm not planning to release this ship kit that I use to build these segment ships, because I don't want to force people to have to put devices into my custom groups. However, if people don't mind doing that, or you don't mind sorting out the mess it makes with the device groups if you auto group, by all means feel free to ask and I will release it, assuming of course I get enough people. So as I've said before, 2 probably isn't enough, 5 I might consider it, 10 I definitely will. The other option of course is that you kind of let me know what segments and connectors and cockpit you want your ship to have, and the name you want it to be, and I'll build it. I would be open to that as well. And there is similar to that option, but you could say, actually, I like the fledgling class mining ship, but could I get a medical connection here instead of a production connector, for example? You might give me just a tweak on an existing one, and then I would do like a fledgling B or something. Okay, so that'll be the end of the tour for the Tenderfoot class cargo ship. Thank you very much for taking an interest in it. I hope you get some use out of it, and hopefully I will see you in another video for a different build. So thank you again, and goodbye.